Hmm. All right. All right. We're back. My voice is sort of here, kind of sort of here. Welcome to the HEF podcast. HEF stands for the Home Education Foundation. It's an organization started in the 90s, 1990s. I can't believe I have to say that. By Brenda Dickinson to protect parents' rights to educate their children as they see fit. And in the most free and open form of that, home education was kind of the banner that she waved as she walked around the Capitol and spoke on behalf of parents all across Florida to be able to choose those options. We believe that parents are given the God-given right and responsibility to raise and educate and care for their own children, and that the children are not necessarily the property of the government. They're they are not. That's right, the property of the government, and they're the responsibility of the parents. So we fight to protect those rights, and as we do that, we have people who go alongside us, and help in that endeavor. So we want to give a special thank you to our top sponsors and our title sponsor. We have Arete Fish. We have Arete and Fisher Precious Metals as our top sponsors, and we look forward to this list growing. It is always a challenge to find good sponsors, sponsors who are dedicated and in it long term. And so, if you know of anyone who is interested in being a sponsor, we have different levels of sponsorship. And for our top sponsors and title sponsors, they get mentions on every one of our podcasts, as well as special pages in our website dedicated to them to kind of tell the story about why they are involved in and support the work that we do to protect parents' rights in the Capitol. And they also get a tax break, as the donation can go into our 501c3 to also benefit all of the advocacy work that we do with parents across the state of Florida. We have several situations that we're working with right now with sports and athletics and extracurricular activities, working hard to get the school districts onboarded as providers in the marketplace for the scholarship funding organization, so that they can also, parents can choose to home educate, but maybe take a class here or there where they need to, and the funding can go to the places that it needs to go to. And man, there's just so many different things. And as we do that, we appreciate our sponsors coming alongside us and helping with that. Without anything further, good morning, Brenda. Or good day.
Good
Oh,
morning.
I got it. We do it at noon, and I always forget. It's not morning now.
Nope. It's been a very busy morning.
It's been a very busy morning.
I'm
Yes.
trying to get paperwork done to get us legal to collect and solicit funds, which we
Mhm.
have been, but now that
Mhm.
we are
That's where we
moving
do it.
into another arena of collecting funds, I filled out the wrong paperwork before Christmas. So now I'm trying to get
No.
all that mess cleaned up. So while it was pouring down rain, I was
Yes.
slogging through the streams of water and get over to the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services to have a sit down with the people that approve those um,
Hmm.
applications. And I think I got it straight now. It's just
I
a
think
lot of
so.
cumbersome. I
It
need a
is.
secretary.
Yes, don't we all? It's it's a lot of papers and a lot of lines, and line this up and do that, and mm, we're there though. We're getting there at least. So yeah, but we do have all of that. If
And
you are
we're
looking to
reading
support,
legislation,
my
trying to
word,
figure out. whether we're being done in or whether we're going to come out on top of this. All the twists
Yeah.
and turns is complicated.
Yeah, is that something we want to dive into? One of the current issues. There's several cases. We were fortunate enough to actually successfully advocate for a student in Clay County earlier in 2024, um, when they were wanting to play in sports. There's a very unique part of the law that is being used to deny home education students the access to sports. Do we want to break that down on stream today, Brenda?
We can, as far as what we're working on, I think it should be general because nothing is
General, yes.
filed yet.
I was thinking we would break down the problem.
Yes, let's break down the problem.
Okay. So the statute that is in question is 1006.15, lovingly called the Craig Dickinson Act, right there in statute. This is put in statute, I believe, in 1996. I believe is when it first landed in statute. And then there were some amendments that were made to a portion of this text. We'll get into in a moment. I think it's very important in the overall picture, but it's not. Well, let's just take a look at it. The Craig Dickinson Act lays out the participation, the definition for participation, and the eligibility for participation in extracurricular, interscholastic extracurricular activities. So this is kind of the landing place for, yes, you can play ball, for lack of a better.
And where you can play ball.
And where, and kind of how that gets started. So when you look at 1006.15 and you look closely at, is it 3C? So if you go to 3, 3 talks about eligibility to participate, and then you look at C, an individual home education student is eligible. I'm going to zoom in on this just for everyone watching. An individual home education student is eligible to participate at public school to which the student would be assigned according to school board attendance area policies, or which the student could choose to attend pursuant to 1002.31, or they may develop an agreement to participate at a private school in the interscholastic extracurricular activities of that school. And this establishes the home education student's right to play and participate. Some interesting things about it, and if I'm being boring, Brenda, let me know. If we're saying anything incorrectly, let me know.
Well, it's not boring to me. I do this all the time, but the audience might be bored to tears.
It's not boring to me either. But if you read just the first part of this, up into the comma, right? Because the comma adds on additional pieces to it. But if you read it just to the comma, an individual home education student is eligible to participate in public school to which the student would be assigned according to district school board attendance area policies. So this would be their zone school. And if it were just left at that, all that home education students would be able to do would be participate at the school that they were zoned for. However, it continues to read, or which the student could choose to attend pursuant to 1002.31. 1002.31 is the statutes that line out closed open enrollment and participation in the open enrollment windows and timeframes, and which schools are on the list and when they're participating, and etc. And it's primarily used for public school students and enrollment record keeping, and placing them in classrooms. So in 1002.31, there's a reference to 1003.03, and that's where we get back into the history of the amendments. So 1003.03 is subjects 1002.31 to the class size limitations. But the class size limitations all throughout all throughout both of these statutes and in the Florida Constitution refer to the core curricula, not the interscholastic extracurricular activities. However, they're being used, class size limitations are being used to deny a student's attempt to participate. They're refusing to make them eligible to participate based off of class capacity limitations, even though the student doesn't take the class. So if the student is zoned for a particular school and they play at that school, a home education student is zoned for that school and they play at that school, the school does not remove an academic seat. So if another student wants to transfer in through open enrollment in the public school system, they actually may, because the home education student does not remove an academic seat. So that seat stays open.
So hold on a minute.
Yes.
You left out the word academic class sizes.
I did. I thought I said that. What did I say?
Well, let's emphasize it if you said that.
Okay.
Because
my voice is bad. You go ahead.
The class size amendment, which passed in the Constitution, I'm not sure the year, maybe 2002, maybe in later, but the legislature defined what that meant. And the statute that you're referring to, 1003.03, spells out the maximum class size for academic classes, and it's specific academic classes. So now what you're currently saying is that home education students who want to play sports at a high school or junior high combination school that is a member of the FHSAA, they do not take up an academic class, so it should not affect the way that the law reads in 1006.15 for home education students.
Correct.
Yep. Okay, go ahead.
So, well, that's it. However, what's happening is all across the state, the default answer when a home education student attempts to play for a school that they're not zoned for, that they could choose through 1002.31, they're being just told, oh, we're at capacity. They're at capacity. There's also a very real lack of transparency in what that capacity is. There's no list to be on or off.
There's supposed to be.
We're told there's no list. It's very, the language that's being used is very, it's like a tap dance. It's very technical and vague. And well, there's not this list, but there's one of these, and this is how we do. Anyway, it's frustrating. So this is a gap that we're dealing with across the state right now. And it's something that many people probably might not ever know is there or is a problem. So it's one that behind the scenes, we've been fighting for the better part of a year on these issues. And little by little, we get another parent comes to us and, oh, hey, here's this issue. And oh, hey, here's this issue. Add on to this the complexity of PEP students. So PEP students are given in statute the same flexibilities and opportunities as home education students. So here where we read home education students, PEP students would be being read in synonymously. So PEP students would have access to all of this the same way. Unfortunately, when PEP students exercise their hybrid option or they take a class at a private school, and let's say that private school is an FHSAA member because they have someone who plays golf, but that PEP student really wanted to play baseball. So they wanted to play baseball. This school doesn't offer it. They want to play at another school. Well, now they're not allowed because they're treated as a private school student because they're taking classes at that private school, even though they're a PEP student. And so some of that's not necessarily legislation that's the issue. It's the practical aspect of, well, how is the FHSAA going to define this student? Are they a PEP student for this purpose, or are they a private school student that's attending a FHSAA member school that doesn't offer their sport for this purpose. And
Yeah.
the statute doesn't necessarily direct that answer. I think it is easy to come to the conclusion that they're a PEP student.
Well, and
But
correct me if I'm wrong, but another
Mhm.
complicating factor here is that the school districts still don't all know how to process PEP students.
Yes. Yeah,
So that's just
for sure.
another layer of confusion added on to all the rest of it.
Yeah, in addition to that. So it's an interesting time, Brenda. This is one of the key things right now that we're focused on, though, because we've got so many cases that have come our way. Clay County, we were able to resolve. Fortunately, there was enough compelling reasons, and there were people being rational and listening among the district. And so what we were able to do was discuss it and come to an agreement where that student was able to play at the school that they were not zoned for, but that they could choose through 1002.31. And they worked with them and they heard them out. They weren't listening to them. And I actually had to hop on the call with the parents and kind of be in the middle and help guide the conversation. But as they did, and as we listened and kind of just laid on the statutes, it's a very dangerous place to be when we're removing a right that is spelled out for a parent and a student. We must have a very good reason, a very good reason for removing that right, especially when it's spelled out so clearly. And they decided to just go ahead and allow them to play. But not every county does that. Some double down. Several right now are doubling down. So this is something that I think we can address in statute and in the upcoming session. So we're going to do that. And then, of course, on top of this, there are some other changes we'd like to see to protect home education and to protect the PEP enrollment path as well.
Well, let me say that back in 1996, when we added that little or could choose according to the schools open districts open control policies or whatever it was, controlled open enrollment, there wasn't most of this information in there because
That's correct.
the maximum class size had nothing to do with it. That little
Right.
paragraph that we said they could choose at that point in 1996 was it just gave school districts the opportunity to assign students on something other than their zoned plan. So that's all it was.
Yes.
So as time rolls on and and laws change based on the legislature, more and more gets added in there. So when we last addressed this issue, and there's been a lot going on in the FHSAA since I first got my foot in the door there, because the attitudes of people involved in a lot of this is what makes it necessary to either have laws or to have lawsuits to interpret the laws. And that's what we're facing to a large extent is the public schools started the FHSAA. They owned extracurricular activities, and gradually we've pulled some of that authority away from them, first with home education students participating, because they had passed a bylaw. They were a private, independent organization, nonprofit organization that controlled all of athletics. At the point that we passed the law and put it into statute for 1006.15 to mandate that homeschoolers could participate, they had a 31 member board. They had one private school representative on the board, and the rest were public school representatives. And a third of the membership were private schools. It took them 2 years to make a bylaw change. And if you can imagine, if the public school owned the organization, their attitude was, we don't want any homeschoolers participating because they're not public school students.
Right.
So we had to first overcome that barrier. Then a few years later, we mandated that small private schools who had no opportunity to have sports could participate. And there was a number in the high school that was set. It's now 200, but I think initially it was less than that, like 60 or something, 125. That's what it was. So gradually over the years, we have made athletics in public school more available to students in the state of Florida. Then, as we got into the choice programs, which began around 2000 with the McKay Scholarship, and then it's continued to grow and grow with charter schools and the original Florida Tax Credit Scholarship, and then in about 2014, the Gardner Scholarship. So what we've done is we've expanded school choice, but there hasn't been a lot of change in all of those students that have chosen something else being able to participate in athletics. Now, Gardner students were, because they were registered as home education students. So we have to figure out how all those interactions come. And then last year, they added the part in their, what do they call them, Jason, where they allowed private school students to stay home one day a week? Hybrid schools. So now hybrid schools have come into the mix, and now we've got more virtual schools. So there's been put a stress on public school athletics because of the choice program. And so there's still a lot of people in the system that are public school minded, and we own the athletics. We do all the programs. And why should we let all of those other students come in and take the spot? This is the phrase, come in and take the spot of the person who's paid the dues by attending the public school. And there are some legislators who believe that all students should have the right to athletic. The public schools are the ones that are being funded with taxpayer dollars, and all students should be able to participate. But then you've got a lot of teacher union supported people that are in the legislature, people that have come out of public schools with the mentality that public schools own the extracurricular activities, not taxpayers. So there's that philosophy that's out there that takes years and years sometimes to overcome. So there's a legislator that wants to change some of that. And we will see how it comes out, whether we're able to get everything that we would like to see, or if it's going to be an incremental change and we have to come back next year and the next year to eventually make athletics an opportunity for all students. That doesn't mean that all students are going to be chosen to participate on the team. It's going to be the best of the best.
So what is interesting? Go ahead.
Even though a public school student may make it, if we didn't have all of these other choice students being able to try out, that student may sit on the bench the entire season because they just weren't skilled enough to participate in the sport.
Yeah, there's two things that jumped out at me while you were talking, and one of them is the importance or the reason why the 1002.31 reference is in the home education portion of the statute. I think that might not, if you're limited to just your zoned school, but let's say you live in a rural county and the school you're zoned for doesn't have the sports that you're looking for, the 1002.31 reference would allow you to participate in the athletics at a school that you could choose through open enrollment that may not be that you're not necessarily zoned for in your rural county. So you could travel a little bit and get to a school that does offer what you're looking for. And so that flexibility is important to have, and that reference is interesting, but it also does create that kind of anchor point as open enrollment. Oh, that's class size limited. Well, we're not in a class at all. So how does
We
that?
don't take up a class seat.
We don't take up a class. You don't even remove a class when we do come participate in the extracurricular activities. So anyone from the public school system could still come take the classes at the school, which is appropriate because it shouldn't, involvement in an athletic sport like baseball shouldn't stop a public school student from transferring into the public school to take their core curricula, because they're not having to
competing for
remove a
seats.
seat.
Yeah.
They're not competing for seats. Also, this is very important to remember as well. It doesn't guarantee a spot on the team. This makes them eligible to play. They still have to try out.
Right.
They still have to try out. That's important. Anyway, that's one thing. The other thing, and this is interesting, it's further down in the statute. We're constantly given pushback on some of these, where like, oh, well, they're gonna pack all these really talented home education students into the best schools and like load the teens up and like
Super teams.
super teams. Like, did you know that home education associations can actually become member schools already? We could pack our own team if we wanted to, and we don't. So what's the basis for this fear? I would love to see that, though. I really would love to see that.
We have
Like,
several
maybe-
that are members of the FHSAA.
I'd love to see that in Hillsborough. Let's do that, because by law we could do that here. We could just pack a home education team and run the field. How cool would that be?
Well, it's
You
also
don't have time to take that on, though, Jason.
I know.
yeah, someone else can take that on.
No, I don't have time for that.
It's also
But,
interesting to me though that they're worried about, like, I guess, unfairness of, skill levels being packed all in one team, because I'm sure demographically there are some counties where like baseball is a much more popular sport and everybody's been playing
Yes,
baseball since
there
they
are.
were 5, and like,
Oh yeah.
so you can't, I mean, are you going to force those to disperse because like it's unfair for all these people that have been playing since they were 3 to all be on the same team? Like, I don't know. There's just, once you start getting into that, it becomes like, where do you draw the line? Where
So
do you
I'm going
make
to tell
those?
you, I have said this.
Recruiting is another big issue. Who
It's a huge
recruited
issue.
who? And now there's unbelievable penalties if a
There
coach
are.
even mentions we have a great baseball team at our school.
Yep.
They would
Yeah,
be
they're so tight.
fined and
Mhm.
punished beyond belief. So coaches can't
Yeah,
even talk
I
about their
believe-
teams.
I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe most coaches don't even participate in the open house events for that very reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to be accused
That's
of
right.
recruiting.
They try to stay
Well,
as million miles away from that
can
as
you
possible.
recruit from within your own public school without it being an issue? Because I was 100% recruited to join the cross country team.
Within your school, yes. Yes, within your school, yes.
You just can't recruit. I mean, again, where do you draw the line? Where are the nuances? Like, you see a talented student and you're like, hey, have you thought about joining the team? I don't know. It just seems like a lot of extra mental effort going into something that's never going to be able to be controlled.
Yes, but you see, none of that applies to home education associations.
Yeah, so
because-
you can go recruit a team, go for it.
That's right. That's
If
right.
anybody wants to do that.
By law,
in
it's part of
Tallahassee.
it. That's right. Please go do it.
Jacksonville.
You have my favor and my full support.
And we
It's just
can
funny to
recruit
me.
all over.
Yeah, exactly. It's just funny to me that the ability to do that already legally exists and no one's doing it. I think it's a baseless fear.
There
Maybe-
are no. There are 2 homeschool athletic teams that are
Mhm.
members of the FHSAA. One out of somewhere in the Tampa Bay area, and one in I think it's in Broward County. It could be Palm Beach. Beach, but I think it's
Okay.
Broward. So
Okay.
somebody did take that initiative, and whether the team would knock the socks off of Armwood is something else.
Yeah,
Chance
so
Let's go
that.
ahead and
one
make
of
that.
them, the Tampa area one, I think is Tampa Bay Heat. I just Googled it, and they do say on their
He-
site that they
They're
compete
an FHSAA
with
member?
FHSAA. Yeah.
Nice.
They're a big, they do classes and stuff as well, but they're a big athletics program out of Brandon, actually. They were right down the street from
They
us.
were right down the street
We
from us.
didn't attend there because we were involved with a
Mhm.
program across on the other side of the town. But
I am talking with someone in Tampa who has a large traveling sports. Um, I can't talk about them
Club
specifically.
team.
Club
It's a
teams,
club
yeah.
team.
And I would love to see them take this on. That to me would be fantastic. Fantastic. When I was a kid, we played community ball. When I was in like elementary school, we didn't have an elementary school team. So, but I remember like that 10 to 13 age range. I remember there was this one year when one of the guys, I don't remember him being a coach before. I just remember him arriving that year, but he imported a team from another neighborhood that was a good distance away. But these boys played ball all day, every day. That's all they did. The moment they got home from school, they played ball together, and they'd played ball together for years, and they stomped every one of our teams in the clubs in the community sports league. The whole season, I think they were undefeated on every city that we would travel to and play sports at. They demolished everybody.
well, it's
Uh,
interesting that you say that because Kim Hannon made a comment. It's beneficial for the schools to allow alternative students into their sports programs because many of these kids have additional opportunity for training due to their schedule. I think that that's
mhm.
actually one of the concerns that they have because a home education student theoretically could practice all day long,
That's
Yeah.
what they
and that
think they
gives
do.
them an advantage
Right.
over public school students. And so I think one of the concerns is, yeah, that you could stack a team with kids that do nothing but play that sport all day long, and then you would end up with what Jason was
And they can
describing, where
still
they
do
just
math,
stomp everybody. Yeah.
but they can still do math, and they can still test and pass well. It's like
But
imagine that.
those
Imagine
public
that.
school people that control this don't believe we do anything at home. You
Yeah.
know,
No.
it's still there's still
There's a contradiction there.
yeah, it is.
There are many
And
contradictions in all of it.
it's competition. I thought that's
Yes.
what you said, not um,
Contradiction.
Yeah, I was saying
contradiction.
Yep.
there's a contradiction in like accusing us of trying to stack teams because we have become so skilled at something, and then on the other hand saying they do nothing, they just sit around all day. It's
And
interesting.
play basketball, so they're super shooters, you know. Except since 1996, we're coming
Mm-hmm.
up on what's that, 30 years?
Oh, that.
2006,
Yeah.
2006. We're coming up on 30 years. It's
Yes.
never
Wow.
happened. So it's one
Right.
of those things they keep bringing up.
The sky is falling, Brenda.
Yes, it was
I
falling.
just swear it's falling. I can see it. Look, it's getting closer.
I just
Sorry.
think it's funny that they think that we're just home education families are just sitting around scheming up these things that we're like, we have so much spare time. We're just scheming
Mm-hmm.
ways to stack an athletics team so we can take the championship. Like that's
Yeah.
actually kind of funny.
Now,
If
the
anyone's
club teams are a different story. They're more like the teams Jason was describing from the
mm-hmm.
next neighborhood over, is
Mm-hmm.
those parents pay a lot of money to
Right.
get those kids on those teams. They practice a lot, but those can be
Mm-hmm.
kids from public school, private school, home education, whoever's willing to put in the
Mm-hmm.
time to take their kids all over the state and into other states on club teams. Yes. So that's something that they've tried really hard to regulate as well, so that they don't build the club teams at a public school and take over. That really is more of a threat than little individual home education students.
Yeah.
But
I was talking to a professor over the weekend of, I believe it's the University of Florida. Maybe he said he's now working at FSU, but he was. I can't remember, and I'm not going to say his name, so it's not going to matter. The reference point is not there. But he's upset because he wrote an article about how the quality of coaches is dropping because they don't have specific enough training on ethics and how to coach and coaching. Anyone who's a teacher can be a coach, and he would like to see that more fully developed. And he had written an article and also a letter to the FHSAA, and I was talking with him, so it was a very interesting conversation. But man, I can't remember where I was going with this now. I shouldn't do that, but it was an interesting conversation to be able to talk with him and see a different person, like a totally outsider, not a home education person, not a public school person, just a person who cares about the sport itself, and some of the issues that he was seeing. I think it's important to remember in all of this that, this is what it was. Now I remember. We were talking about the value of sports. Like, why are we doubling down on this? Like, why is this so important? And I think at the very top of the 1006.15, it lays it out. Interscholastic extracurricular student activities are an important complement to the academic curriculum. They're separate from the academic core curriculum, but they're a very important part. And in public schools, and this was one of my main reasons why I was so intent on home educating our children, is the things that are most important to me are that my children be formidable, critical thinkers, that they are morally taught character building, and that they are taught how to be resilient, that they don't give up easy, they don't give up at the first difficult sign of this or that. And all three of those things are sports related. They're taught through sports. They're lived out in sports. When the fourth quarter or the ninth inning or whatever that last piece is, or you're finding a team that is undefeated and you're not doing so hot in your season, you've got to come up with a strategy. You've got to have the will to see it through. Like there's so much that pushes you and challenges you and builds character, and to see this kind of what's diverted, like, oh no, you can't, you're at capacity. The school you're zoned for is 40 minutes away, or sorry, they're all at capacity. Your rural county that you're stuck in and zoned for doesn't even have the sport you want to play. Like these are very, very important issues. All of these are tax-paying people. They pay their taxes. Their taxes go to fund these programs. The funds flow down from the state to the schools and the districts for these programs. The students should be able to play and participate in them. And that's the intent, and that was the purpose of these. Now, I personally think it's critical. I think it's very important. And I know that Brenda agrees. I know that she does.
Well,
and I know Craig would agree, because here it is, the Craig Dickinson Act.
actually, it was named after him, but he wasn't around when all of this happened.
Yeah.
But back then, they didn't name bills after people that were living. So
Right.
we honored him for all of his work in home education. But I was going to say, let me just give a shout out to the FHSAA.
Sure, yeah.
They were very obstinate in '96. We tried to work with that board, with the executive committee, and just work this out so that home education students could participate. It was initially just in band, and they would not budge.
Wow.
And so basically, this private nonprofit corporation got put into statute, which I kept saying to them, you don't want this to happen. And they did continue to oppose it. And it got put into statute in '96. And then they have been, the regulations on them and what they're having to do has all gone into law. And they've had to make a lot of adaptations since then. And we've had several executive directors that have taken over the reins of the FHSAA. One became a senator. Bill Monford was the first president of the new organization that we created in statute. He's now the, I think they call him executive director of the School Superintendents Association. And then John Stewart and Roger Deering and several others after that. And they have been very open-minded toward allowing home education students to participate and to make sure that all of their bylaws are fair to home education students. A lot of that had to do with the fact that I was sitting right in those committees, following all the board meetings and making sure that they recognized homeschoolers. And so, but it hasn't been the negative attitudes that we had back before 96 when they went into statute.
Sure. I'd like to echo that if I can. It was a pleasure to go and sit in those meetings and meet the different individuals from the, what is it? Eligibility and
PLAC?
Compliance, the PLAC. I met the executive director, Craig Damon. He's fantastic. I didn't realize that we both had gone to GCU, but we had. Anyway, the atmosphere and the attitude is not as you described it initially. It's shifted. It's good. It's very palatable. There's a lot of people who are very friendly. They're very, sometimes even, they agree with us. And they go, hey, look, I see it this way, but we're not in a place of authority over the district superintendents to force them to do it this way. They still have to run the district. And so there's kind of checks and balances and everything. But the attitude, the overall attitude, I just wanted to echo what you said. You're right. I've seen that for myself as well, in a very positive way.
Well, the thing about the superintendents is they have decided to interpret this 1002.31 in a way that I don't think you don't think that they've accurately interpreted it, but the association is telling them, and their association attorney is telling the district superintendents that they can bar home education students from participation because of the statutes you referenced that deal with capacity in their classes. But our argument is, but they're not taking up a class. So, this is, I don't like to see things go to court because as we've seen over the past 2 or 3 years, at least at the federal level, judges don't always make the right decisions. And if you've got to interpret a law and a judge says, well, I think the districts have the right to make those decisions and I interpret the law like they do, you're still back to the legislature in order to change the law because the judges are looking at the current law and making an interpretation. And so we are going to try this year to get some clarity in the law so that it's very clear that home education students who want to participate in athletics are not limited by class size.
Right. Yeah, and I think I just echo what you said about the court cases. I do another podcast on Fridays with a law firm, and he was talking this past week about how when you get to the higher courts of appeals, and one of them decides that's the way it is for that area, and until everyone can then interpret it that way, but until another court makes a decision differently from that, hey, we see that differently, then once they do that, it would go to the Supreme Court. This could all take years or close to a decade or not happen when that conflict arises. So you're absolutely right. The cleanest way forward is to make sure that the statutes are clear spells out the right and have enough teeth to compel action.
So if this is an issue of importance to you, we recommend that you reach out to your legislators, and especially the ones on the education committee who are in leadership over the
Yes.
bills that go through the education subcommittees and committees, and ultimately will get the ear of the Speaker of the House and the Senate President, because it's an important issue to you. And we will be working very hard to get clarification that
Yes.
that statute, we don't want to take it out of the statute because it gives us the same opportunity as other students to choose a school that you're not assigned to. But it needs to be clear that that is not limited, that right is not limited by class size. So seems pretty simple, but you got to get enough support from the legislators
Right.
to change
And
the law.
and you're right that not every legislator is embedded in this and fully read in on the issues. So if it is something that's important to you, taking this video and maybe watching it back again so that you can listen to how we go through it. I have all the visuals up for what the statutes are, and just, you don't have to become an expert, but just so that you understand, what it is that you're asking for whenever you talk to your legislators, and you say, hey, this is an important issue for us, that homeschool or home education students across the state are being told they can't play, even though they are being able to play. And to many, that would raise an eyebrow, and they go, what do you mean? And like, you could then refer them to us, and we could read them in,
Yeah, sharing this
on the
video would
situation
be
at
a
that
great
point.
idea at that point when they're like, "What do you mean?" You could, this will go up on
Mhm.
YouTube later. You could send the link.
Mhm.
I just wanted to add, if you are looking to reach out to your representatives, but you're wanting to figure out if they're on a committee related to this,
Mhm.
we have the links on our website to find your representatives. But once you get to the page for your representative, in the House, there's a picture of the representative, and then under it, there's a button that says full detail. If you
Mhm.
click on that, it will actually take you to a page that shows their current committee assignments and all kinds of other things. So you can actually see if your local representative is on any education committees or anything related to these issues. And if
But
they
if
are,
athletics are an important issue to him, then he still may be able to influence members of the committee.
yes. So don't not reach out if they aren't, but if they are, then you can even mention that in here in your email and say, "I noticed that you're on this committee. I
Mhm.
wanted to just make sure you're aware of this issue that's happening in my county," or whatever.
Mhm.
So just that little bit of extra information, if you want to dig for it, you can click on that full details button under the picture of your representative, and it'll take you
Mhm.
to that.
And there's also a link, at least there was, I haven't been able to get onto the legislative website today. I don't know whether it's just got hundreds and hundreds of people trying to get on and I'm not being able to make access. But generally, on one of the tabs at the top of the page, when you go to the legislature website, leg.state.fl.us, online
Mhm.
sunshine is what they generally refer to that link. There would be a link to the committees, and then you
Mhm.
click on education and you can see the subcommittees and then the full committee of education. And you may know somebody that doesn't live in your area that you could put a
Mhm.
call into.
Absolutely. And if you need help finding that on our website, if you go to flhef.org, under information down on that menu, submenu there, you have a link to find my representative and find my senator, both of those. So you can use either one of those links directly from our website if you're not sure how to get to that. I know that when I first really started looking into this, I was like, why does the URL so difficult to type out and remember and know? Like,
Yeah,
it's
the
not
Sunshine website is not
succinct.
always super easy to
Yeah.
navigate if you go there, and then the
Yeah.
Senate has its own website, and the House has its
Mm-hmm.
own website in addition to those. So, yeah,
Right.
those links from
Right.
our site will take you right to the search where you put in your address and it'll tell you who your representative
Mm-hmm.
is or your senator.
Absolutely. And you'd be looking for pre-K-12, the education committee, pre-K-12, not post-secondary. So, all right. I think that is a good day. Is there? Oh wait, Katie Lane says, is there a homeschool day at the Capitol scheduled? Let me look.
Yes, they need to contact FPEA, who does that.
I believe that day at the Capitol. I don't know if it's been scheduled for this year. I don't see it on their website, and I don't necessarily see it here, but we can follow up. We can follow up on that. Yep. And get more information out about it. So, good question. Thank you for asking. Any other questions we don't know the answer to, Katie? Thanks a lot. Thank you for being with us. All right, if you enjoyed the podcast, if it's helpful information, if it's something that is of interest to you or you think might be of interest to someone that you haven't yet shared it with, or even if someone that you have, but maybe you talk to them and they don't watch us regularly or tune in or know what's going on, feel free to share this one with them. And then also, we are still, I want to plug it because we haven't said it in a little bit, but we are still looking for submissions. Thank you, Katie, for yours, to the Tell Your Story project. And the more people that we talk with behind the scenes, the more apparent it becomes that this is a huge need. This is a very, very important project. The James Madison Institute is very excited that we're working on this. And I know that Step Up for Students is also very interested in this as one of the scholarship funding organizations, because they're very interested in parents being able to be free to use the funds as they see fit for their education. And they would like, when we all talk to senators and representatives, they don't always know the inside story. They know what the media says or what this person or that person said. So giving them samples of, and examples of, hey, here's how we homeschool. Here's how we homeschool with UA. Here's how we homeschool with PEP. Here's how we homeschool without a scholarship. And giving them samples so that they can see the baseline of what home education looks like, and they can see that PEP people are no weirder than the rest of the home education people in the way that we spend the funds this way. We might be weird compared to those public school kids, but they don't have nearly as much freedom or access as we do. So, but they can if they choose to. They just enroll as home education, and there they go.
They can't,
But
the parents can't customize their education. It's
not there.
customized for them.
Yes. And so this project is really, really extremely helpful. All of the details are on that page, Tell Your Story. So flhef.org/tell your story. This would be great to share that with them. And then also we have lost one of our top sponsors. So I would just like to reiterate that there are lots of home education families across the state. And now is a critical and important time that if you're thinking about supporting or know of someone who could and is in the position to, even as little as $5 a month, there are very, very comfortable yet very, very helpful support options. And with 150,000 students across Florida, on the last check, it would be relatively easy for us to find the funding, if even a fraction of those families supported at the bottommost tier. If you can support higher than that, fantastic. But even support at the bottommost tier would go a long way to securing the efforts and the work that of the work that we're trying to do. Anyway, we want to thank you all for your time and attention. We really appreciate everyone being here and joining in to catch the most up-to-date information and the stuff that we're working on and all kinds of things like that. I'm going to hit some of these comments real quick before we log off. Jennifer Hooper says, I have also been searching for the 2025 homeschool day at the Capitol and haven't found anything yet. And Christine, I'm bouncing around. Christina says, yes, I'm also looking for the information. Okay, what we'll do then is we'll work on locating some of that information, and we'll venture back to the comments here and drop whatever information we can find here as well.
I will say last year it was in February.
Mhm.
So I'm guessing they're going
Was
to
it?
be, but yes, but also the
Okay.
legislative session started earlier last year. So,
Yeah.
Probably they're going to want to do it during session, which is going to be sometime March, April.
Mm-hmm.
But, if we get a date on that, we'll make sure we let people know.
Yeah, we'll come back to the comments here and drop it in the comments section with Jason Crawford.
I've actually seen a date, but I don't know where I saw it.
Okay, we'll track that information down and we'll try to provide links to it and the information so that you can have it here, and then it becomes shareable if anyone else needs it. So, all right. Without anything further, Britt, is there anything you want to add before we sign off for the day?
Thank you for the work y'all are doing, and I'm so happy that you've come on board.
We are too.
Well, thank you, Brenda, for the
Thank
40
you.
years of work you put in protecting our
Yes.
freedoms. So
Absolutely. And thank you to all those parents out there who take on and shoulder the responsibility of educating your own children and diving in with all of your passion and the core of your heart and belief, shoring up good character, formidable thinking, children into successful adults. We love you.
Day
and we
after
support
day, year after year, giving
not
up their
lost.
own careers and giving up
Mhm.
their own time to invest in
Yes.
their children.
Your sacrifices are also seen, and we appreciate you for that. Without anything else, we love y'all. We'll see y'all next week. Have a wonderful week, and we look forward to the next podcast. We're out. Was that HEF out?
Okay, I got to get on another call, so we will continue.